Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We come to you with a Football Friday program on the Mike Francesa channel on the Bet Rivers Network on YouTube for week number 5, which began last night with a thrilling, wild, just crazy 36-30 overtime win by the Falcons, who play every game to the wire. And the Falcons win compensated for a loss to the Chiefs they shouldn't have had. They stole one last night, and they get a big win to move to 3-2. Bucks fall to 3-2. I'll get you more on that game later. First, of course, this morning we are waking up in New York after one of the great sports nights in New York baseball history, and after experiencing one of the biggest home runs in baseball history. In an elimination game, in the 9th inning, a 3-run homer, 2 runs down, is one for the books, and one that will never, ever be forgotten. And like I said, last night was a very, very big night if you're a Met fan, and the Mets wake up today really just thrilled and excited as they move on to take on the Phillies starting tomorrow. In Philadelphia, the Mets will play at 4. The Yankees will play at 6:30. So you have an October right now that more than makes up for the problems that the Giants and the Jets are experiencing right now. The Mets and the Yankees both alive. The Yankees trying to get to a World Series for the first time in eons. The Mets trying to have this really magic carpet ride, and they took a big step forward with that come-from-behind win. An amazing come-from-behind win last night in Milwaukee. They start at 4 tomorrow against Wheeler. The Yankees go at 6:30. The Mets will just get the schedule right. The Mets will go Sunday. The Yankees will go Monday. The Mets will go Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Friday for a Game 5 back in Philly. The Yankees will go Wednesday, Thursday, and then back at Yankee Stadium for a Game 5 on Saturday. So it will be wall-to-wall baseball. We will cover it every step of the way. We will do podcasts after each of these games. So tomorrow we'll do one after the Met game. We'll come back and do one after the Yankee game. We'll be on Sunday after the Jets, who are in London. We'll be on Sunday after the Giants have a 4:30 game in Seattle. So we have a very busy weekend coming up. We got a Football Friday today, but we'll sprinkle a little baseball into it. Let me give you the rough odds, not the exact odds, because let them settle in a little bit. But right now, the biggest favorite is the Yankees as a little more than a 2-1 favorite over Kansas City, 215-1. These are Bet Rivers odds. The Phillies are 9-5 favorites, minus 182 at the moment. The Indians are a slight favorite over the very, very hot live underdog in Detroit, about minus 125. And the Dodgers bouncing around about the 150 mark as a favorite over the Padres. And the Padres are very live right now, too. They're a very good team, played very well the second half of the season. And they are very live. So your baseball schedule tomorrow is an exciting one, without any question. 4 big games tomorrow to get things launched. Can't have a better day than that. Tomorrow you have Detroit and Cleveland at 1, Mets at 4 in Philly, Kansas City at the stadium at 6:30, and then San Diego at the Dodgers at around 8:45, 8:35, depending on when they throw first pitch tomorrow night. So that's where we are right now. Week 5. Let me get to last night's game for a second. Remarkable performance by Cousins. You know, the passing numbers in the league are way down. You wouldn't have known it last night as both quarterbacks ripped up the respective defenses, but Cousins with a 509-yard, 4 TD performance. That's a career performance for Cousins last night for anybody. 509 yards and 4 touchdowns, spreading the ball around, getting it to London, getting it to Mooney, getting it to Pitts. They got down the field. If you didn't watch, if you were hooked up with the baseball, they spiked the ball. They actually threw inside without a timeout which I thought was exceedingly dangerous. They needed to gain ground on the last possession. They had no timeouts. There were 12 seconds left. I thought they'd have to go sideline. They didn't. They went in the middle of the field and amazingly got back up and spiked it with 1 second left. And then were so busy congratulating themselves, they let the clock run out, the play clock, and wound up losing 5 more yards and making it over a 50-yard field goal, which Koo had one blocked and had missed one, made it. They get the ball in overtime. They knew they didn't want Tampa to touch the ball in overtime. And they went right down the field, scored a touchdown, and they were going crazy in Atlanta. Atlanta's 3-2, Tampa's 3-2. So a big, big win for them. Sunday morning, I don't know how you could have a bigger sports day than Sunday in New York. 9:30, the Jets. And then the Mets at 4. The Giants at 4. You have a Sunday night game. You got baseball all around it, because you got 2 of the teams playing. The American League's not playing on Sunday. The National League is. The Yankees will play the second game on Monday. They'll open tomorrow at 6:30. So you have baseball. You have football. So tomorrow morning, Jets against a Minnesota team that has had an incredible start. Very few quarterbacks have ever opened 4-0, throwing 10 touchdown passes in their first 4 games. Sam Darnold has done that. Minnesota's passing offense has been superb. They have beaten good teams. They beat a banged-up San Francisco team, but they beat them. They beat Texas. They beat the Houston Texans. They beat Green Bay. Held on for dear life, but still Green Bay never threatened to win that game. They got the last score to make it very close, but they were never going to threaten to win the game because they had opened a 28-0 lead, Minnesota. They've done it with a blitzing defense, and they've done it with, obviously, a passing attack. The Jets come off a dreadful, awful, just, you can't even describe it, painful loss to Denver, which never should have happened. And instead of being 3-1 and in very good shape after the Buffalo loss to Baltimore, they're 2-2 and really in need of winning this game in London before they play Buffalo next week on Monday night. Clearly, the Jets, their offense has been putrid. They looked good in the second half of the Tennessee game. They looked good in the New England game, but they looked awful last week. They have not been able to run the ball. They have pass blocks, okay, and they got blitzed on like crazy last week. The only team that's blitzing more than Minnesota right now is, I think Chicago is, and I think Denver is. Denver blitzed like crazy last week, but it was in the rain too, and that was an issue. The Jets committed so many penalties, and you saw the first crack in the Salah-Rodgers relationship when you could see that Rodgers was annoyed at the idea that the Jets might have to scratch the, and you hear my wonderful companion there, Taylor, who's, heard something outside, but that's fine. They might have to scratch, according to Salah, the pre-snap hard count, which has been part and parcel of Rodgers' game his whole career. I mean, it's kind of his calling card. And the idea that you could see, was visibly annoyed with the idea of even thinking of amending that, instead of him saying, hey, that's one way to do it. The other way is to hold people accountable, which is, you basically should have said, how about we coach people? And that's the same thing. You knew 2 things were bothering you. The Reddick situation was bothering you going into the season. And what was bothering you is this coaching staff, which is inadequate. Now, I know a lot of people ask the question, they've been asking it all week, can they make a change in season? They're not going to make a change in season. Changes in season are very rare. I've seen reports this week about Belichick jumping in here and jumping in there. Not with the Jets, but jumping in different places. Coaches, first of all, like Belichick or anybody, they're very reluctant to do that. Nobody wants to take over a team when they haven't had a training camp, haven't put the staff together. They're going to coach people they, A, might not think are any good, or B, don't like. And then they haven't even cut a roster. And if you're a coach worth anything, you want to have put your fingerprints all over every part of the team, especially the coaching staff. So to come in the middle of a season and take over a situation, you're only going to do that if you're desperate or if the team has some desperate reason. And most of the time when that's done, it's usually somebody elevated on the staff. That's not going to happen here. This is going to be Salah's team this year, but it's going to be his last team, thankfully, if they fall short of making the playoffs. And if they don't win double digits, they won't make the playoffs. So if they can't win double digits with this team, shame on them. But they continue to just show their inadequacies as a coaches time and time and time again. You play a Thursday night game and you have a all-world Hall of Fame quarterback and you have the amount of penalties, the amount of false starts, the mistakes that you had last week where they had 13 penalties accepted. I think the number that they were whistled for was 17. I mean, it's disgraceful. Their coaching is so poor that it boggles the mind. And as I stated earlier in the week, how bad is it? They can actually make Aaron Rodgers look bad. And that's almost impossible to do. Because there's certain things he's not going to do. He's not going to throw interceptions. I mean, even this year in this ugly offense, he's only thrown one interception. Sam Darnold's had an incredible start, has thrown 3 interceptions, and the team has had 7 turnovers. Aaron Rodgers doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't throw interceptions. He hasn't had a lot of touchdown passes. He has 5 touchdown passes and 1 interception. Now, the interesting thing going into this game is the Jet running game really that bad? Is it really that bad? And Minnesota's been good against the run, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, Hall's year almost boggles the mind. I mean, it really does. That's how bad it's been. Now, Minnesota is a team you don't want to blitz because Darnold's so far on the blitz, and the Jets don't blitz a lot. They get a pass rush, usually without blitzing a whole lot. So that helps them in this game. In this game, I'm more worried about – I'm not as worried about the downfield throws in this game as I am Minnesota hurting the Jets with running game, play action, and screen game. I'm very worried about them hurting the Jets in that regard. Now, if you blitz Minnesota so far this year, Darnold is 18 of 20 for 335 yards and 4 touchdowns with no picks against the blitz. He's gone 9 times against the blitz to Jefferson. He's 9 for 9 for astronomical gains. So you're not going to blitz a whole lot, but the Jets don't. Minnesota does. Now, normally in the past, you did not blitz Aaron Rodgers. Denver did last week, maybe because of the wet field, etc., and they had fairly good success. And Rodgers' numbers against the blitz are not what you would expect them to be. So it'll be very interesting to see how much, look for that early in the game, how much Minnesota blitzes. They've been blitzing about 42% of the time. And that's one of the reasons they have 17 sacks. Jets have 14, they don't blitz a whole lot. But this Jet defense has not played well against the run, and the Jets, it's elementary to run the ball and stop the run, and they've done neither. So that worries you going into this game. And this, to me, when you have a day like they had against Denver, you have to turn around and spit that right back out. And to do that, they need to beat Minnesota. They need a good performance tomorrow. You want to see something out of Hall tomorrow. You want to see a crisp performance tomorrow. You want to see him get the ball around, get it to the tight ends, get it to Wilson. And Wilson, you can see already having big problems with what's going on with this offense this year. Big problems. And that's got to change right now. Now, for the Giants, they say it's going to be a game time and they're going to wait to game time. I doubt Neighbors plays tomorrow. He has not come out of concussion protocol. He still could by tomorrow's game time, but I think it's 90-10 he doesn't play. Now, that takes away a lot of what the Giants have done so far. I mean, he's been their weapon. Playing without him does not look good right now. So they will have to be really on their game in a lot of ways if they're going to play without a guy who's already become the focal point of the offense. Seattle is very tough to play at home. They also can throw the ball with anybody. You saw them if you watched the Detroit game. Detroit couldn't stop them even a little in their passing game. Not even a little. They have weapons. They have receivers. Geno Smith can deliver the ball. They have a big-time running back in Walker who now looks healthy, had a great game on Monday night. So the bottom line is that's going to be a very, very tough game for the Giants in every way, really. If the Giants do not get a ton of pressure on Geno, they are going to get carved up. They are just going to get carved up in the secondary in this game. That's going to be a tough game, very tough game for the Giants. I mean, any way you slice it, it's never easy to play there. And Seattle's a legitimate team, and they're going to get better as the season progresses. Now, byes start this week. Lions, Chargers, Eagles, and Titans are off. So we already have the bye games starting, so teams start to take their weeks off. The schedule lightens up a little bit. It's not a great week of games, but you have so much going on with the baseball. You got an interesting one with the Bills and the Texans, which I'll get to. The Monday night game is the Saints and the Chiefs. The Chiefs obviously now have to deal without Rice. They don't have Pacheco, although Hunt looked good last week. I think he was 14 for 69. He ran really well. And the Chiefs always find a way. Can they integrate Worthy more into the offense? Yes, but I don't see him becoming a heavy catch guy. I can see him getting the ball in different ways, making a big play every game, but I don't see him yet getting to be a volume guy this early in the season. And your Sunday night game is the Cowboys and the Steelers, which anytime you see those two uniforms clash, it's a big game. That's all there is to it. So we'll see what happens there. And the Cowboys have their problems. The Steelers coming off their first loss. And there's a lot of rumblings inside the Steelers because you got some unhappy people there. So that's interesting to watch. Now, Ravens and the Bengals. Bengals got their first win last week. Ravens were ultra impressive against the Bills. And let me say this. The Ravens are 2-2. They had to rebuild their whole defensive coaching staff. They had a lot of work to do on the offensive line. They lost some key people on defense. So they were not the same team, which last year I thought at the end of the season they were the most talented team in the league. They didn't win it, but they were the most talented team. But I see in them, the two teams I see right now, that judging on their personnel, that I think can make the biggest leaps in season in terms of improvement are the Ravens in the AFC and Green Bay in the NFC. There is a lot of room for improvement on both teams. They're both 2-2. They now have Love back. Love, after making some mistakes last week, got hot and wound up, putting up big numbers. I think the Ravens could be overpowering on offense once they get the offensive line settled in, and it looks like it's getting better. Signing Henry was a really smart deal. Think about the Cowboys for kicking themselves. I mean, Henry wanted to play for the Cowboys. So Bengals, if they fall to 1-4 here, and it's hard to see the Bengal defense that we watched Washington just embarrass. Well, if Washington embarrassed it, what's Baltimore going to do to it? So you're going to have to get a big game from Cincinnati for them to find a way to beat Baltimore. Panthers and the Bears. All right, the Bears are 2-2, and they're still kind of searching on offense. Panthers are clearly far more functional with Dalton, a quarterback, but they're still not very good. Dolphins right now are to the point where you wonder what's going to happen there. The only thing that came out of this week positive for the Dolphins is the fact that Hill said he's committed to the team, because you could have seen Hill jumping ship and looking to get traded. He doesn't. Now, is Tua coming back? We don't know. They're acting like Tua is coming back. Then you get word later in the week that they're trying to kick the tires on this quarterback, on that quarterback. They need a quarterback. They don't have without Tua there, they don't have a quarterback. None of the guys they have right now can play a lick and can't get the ball to their weapons. And they were embarrassing in their loss to Tennessee. The Pats are 1-3. They haven't made the switch at quarterback yet, but they're not looking good. But right now, they could get a win against the Dolphins because the Dolphins just look putrid. Talking about an offense in trouble, how about the Browns at 1-3 taking on Washington? This will be an interesting test for the Cleveland defense because Washington has been just a juggernaut the last couple of weeks. They tore up Cincinnati. They tore up Arizona. In the last 2 weeks, basically hasn't had an incomplete pass while they've put up 38 and 40-something points. I think they put up 42 last week. It was over 40. I think it was 42. Daniels was, 38 to 42 the last 2 weeks. He's getting the ball to McLaren. They're running the ball like crazy. They're dangerous, and they're 3-1. The Colts are 2-2. Richardson sounds like he'll go. You know what? If they go to Flacco, they're okay. They're very content when they have to play Flacco. Now, here's what works for them. They have a young quarterback they're trying to bring along in Richardson. He's been banged up. He's been ineffective. They have a backup in Flacco. They have no quarterback controversy. It's never going to be Flacco's job. Well, Flacco can come in and he can win. So you're not, if Richardson, gets a hip pointer or gets a knee or gets hurt or gets, hit in the head because he's running around all the time, you go to Flacco and they're probably more dangerous because they throw the ball a lot better. Taylor's having a good year. He had an ankle last week. It wasn't that bad. Now they get the 0-4 Jaguars. There's all kinds of talk. Now, last week the Jaguars gave a big effort, were winning the whole game. Week 1, they were winning the whole game against Miami. They lost. Last week, they were winning the whole game against the Texans. They lost. They're 0-4. There's talk about the coach getting fired. There's talk about the coach getting fired this week. Belichick's name's been mentioned there because of they have a very wealthy owner who is unhappy in Kareem Shah, who's the London guy who keeps taking the team to London. He's even thought about taking the team to London permanently. His son is got a friendship with Belichick. He's a billionaire guy who doesn't interfere with the team from a football standpoint. He's too busy with his racehorses. He's too busy with his, technological empire. But he's got billions. So he's been, Belichick's been mentioned there. He's been mentioned in Dallas. He's been mentioned in Philly. I don't see him coming to the Giants. I don't think the Giants are going to change coaches. I know the Giant fans want to get Belichick. I don't think it will happen. Despite his good relationship with John Mara, I do not think it will happen. I do think he could go to Dallas. I don't know about Philly. There's been a lot of talk about Philly. The relationship with Jacksonville could be for a lot of money. He'll give him complete control. I don't think that would start till next year, though, if it happens. So the Jags either got to start winning now, or this coach is not going to finish the season. They are committed to Lawrence, and they should be, because they can win with Lawrence. They just got to get the team straightened out. This whole season here, Lawrence thrown one pick. He hasn't played well, but he's thrown one interception on the season. Bills at the Texans. Bills got beat up last week by the Ravens. The Ravens just embarrassed them. Okay, That's fine. Bills are going through a tough stretch right now. Ravens last week, Texans on the road this week, Jets on the road next week. That's a tough schedule. So we'll find out about them. Obviously, we know about Diggs in this game and everything else if you like the drama. Big stretch for the Bills. See how they emerge record-wise. We know the Bills are dangerous. We know that they're a playoff contender and a contender with their quarterback, with their offensive weapons. But how good are they on defense? That remains to be seen. Baltimore cut them up last week. They'll cut a lot of people up, though. Raiders, 2-2. Broncos, 2-2. Broncos defense playing well. Knicks doing just enough. Wouldn't be surprised that. See, in this game, I like Antonio Pierce as a leader. I don't think they're a great X&O team, but I think they play hard. Denver's going to get better and better with Sean. With Peyton there, they're going to get better and better. They're already 2-2, and Knicks does not overly impress you, but he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. So, and you can tell already that Sean has confidence in him. Don't be surprised if they have a better record than you think. Cards, off the loss, get the Niners. I don't know when the Niners are going to get healthy, but they'll win this game. Harrison so far, 15 catches, a little light. 16 to a catch, not bad for a rookie. 4 touchdowns, very good. He's already found the end zone 4 times on the season. First 4 weeks, 4 touchdowns. Told you he was going to have a very big year. I think it'll get better from here. Packers and Rams. Rams banged up. I think it's amazing when they can do anything because they've been so decimated by injuries. Packers are a good team. They're going to get better and better and better. Cowboys and Steelers Sunday night. Big game. Cowboys got a big win against the Giants. They got time off, but they're banged up in key spots. Banged up in key spots on defense. Don't have any running game. Nothing. They have the worst stable of running backs in the league. And it's hard to run the ball on the Steelers anyway. Steelers, they have to be more proficient on offense. That's it. They can't settle for no offense every week and try to win every game 17-14, 20-17. It's just too hard to do. They have to have a margin where they can get some explosiveness. We'll see how they do that. Then the Saints at 2-2, supposedly, like the Jets, in the market for Devontae Adams, the 2 leading candidates. He would like to play with a quarterback that he's worked with before. He'd really like to play, he said, with Rodgers or Carr. Chiefs are 4-0. They don't have the appetite to sign a guy making what Adams makes. So they got, they really have to move a lot of stuff around to do that. Mahomes and the defense find a way. Mahomes has already thrown 5 interceptions this year. He's got 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Chiefs have won 4 games by 20 points. They've won 10 games in a row, and they have done it with 9 of the games, 1-score games. That has never been done before in the history of the NFL. Has any team ever won 10 games or more in a row and only played 1 game outside 1 score? So they are winning all these close games, game after game after game. It's just very hard to do. How do they do it? They're smart on defense. Their head coach is smart in big spots, situationally smart, and the quarterback makes plays when he has to make plays. They only got 5 picks, though. And now they have to use Hunt. They want to use Hunt to replace Pacheco. Rice is out, maybe not for the season, but at least for a while. Will they make a move on running a wide receiver. If they do, it'll be for somebody's secondary wide receiver who they'll cultivate into a bigger player. They aren't going to go get a superstar wide receiver. They're not going to do that. So I don't think, everyone wants to put a big receiver there. You're hearing, oh, put Amari Cooper there. Oh, put, Hopkins there. Oh, put Adams there. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll be a backup of somebody else's team. But I do think they'll add somebody. And Andy's got an eye for that stuff. He really does. So you know that whoever he gets, he will have a role for him. He will have a purpose for him. And it will not be a wasted play. 2 unbeaten teams, Kansas City, which you'll see on Monday night. The Jets playing Minnesota, the other unbeaten team, which will play 9:30 from London. 1 winless team. That's it. 1 winless team. And that's Jacksonville. Could that cost the head coach his job? Yes. I think if he doesn't get a win in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think he'll be out. Now, I think they'll have an interim, but their season will be over, and then you'll wonder about whether Shaw's going to go out and break open the vault for Belichick. Like I said, you've heard Dallas mentioned. You've heard Philly mentioned. Everyone around here wants the Giants to be in the mix. But Jacksonville has also been mentioned a lot now, and a lot more recently. But I don't think he would come back in season. I would be very, very surprised, almost shocked, because I just can't see him wanting to inherit a staff. He's so rigid about the way he does things that I just don't see him doing that. I think he would want to put his guys back together, or as much of his guys as he possibly can, including his son and everybody else. His son's at the University of Washington this year. So I think you'll have to wait till next year. And I would put the favorite in the clubhouse right now, the Cowboys. If the Cowboys don't have a big season, I would think he'd still go there because I know how close he is to the Jones, especially Stephen Jones. So I think that could definitely happen without any question. All right, the squares. Now, each week I tell you about the squares. It's a great deal for you. It doesn't cost you a thing. Players can play same-game parlays on college games and NFL games to earn squares. The exclusive square game offers additional chances for profit boosts, bonus bets, and $10,000 jackpots. We've heard people in the metropolitan area. So you get the Super Bowl kind of box, or 09 here, 09 there. And if you make a wager, you'll get 1, 2, or 3 squares. And if it lands on it, who knows? Maybe you pick up $10,000. Doesn't cost you a thing to play. Now, emails. Here we go. Mike Francesa podcast at gmail.com. Jake starts us off. All right, we'll get a couple in before we bid you adieu. And remember, we'll be live after the Mets and after the Yankees tomorrow, after the Jets and after the Giants on Sunday, and we'll sprinkle the baseball in. Mets are playing Sunday at 4. Yankees are off Sunday. They're playing a 7:30 game 2 against Kansas City on Monday. Now, as I said, Philly is in 9-5 favorite. The Yankees are a little more. They're 215. So that means you lay 100. You lay 215 to win 100. Not a great series bet, but let's be honest. The Yankees. It would be. Kansas City has got some good starting pitchers. Lugo's had a great year. They got some pitchers on the back of the pen. They have a couple of wonderful players with a superstar player. Perez is a wonderful, wonderful player. They are a dangerous club, but it would be incredibly disappointing if the Yankees went out in this round against Kansas City. Let's be honest. So that you have to favor the Yankees there. I think the Yankees, listen, they clearly can beat anybody. And they clearly have shown you during the season, if you follow them, they could lose to anybody because they can be extremely vulnerable in terms of overall lineup. They can be extremely vulnerable in the bullpen. And I thought Cortez was going to wind up being a big factor for them in the bullpen. Even though he wouldn't have been happy, he would have done it. And he probably would have pitched angry, and when he did, he pitched brilliantly. But his injury is a big factor. And there are a lot of live teams right now. If Philly won the whole thing, you wouldn't be surprised. If San Diego won the whole thing, you wouldn't be surprised. If the Dodgers won it, you're never going to be surprised. If the Yankees won it, you wouldn't be surprised. And I'll tell you something. Even the other teams, Kansas City, Detroit, Cleveland, the Mets, the Tigers, they are all, you got 8 teams. There's not really a bad team in the bunch. The Mets are not a bad team. So they have some weaknesses? Yeah. I mean, they got a weakness. They got getting the 7th and 8th innings is hard. They don't have a great guy in that 7th, 8th inning. Even when you have a great guy, you might not get through those innings. That's how hard it is to get those final 9 outs in these postseason games. As we saw yesterday, the Mets couldn't get the outs in the 8th inning. The Brewers couldn't get the outs in the 9th inning with their closer on. They get a 2-hit shutout going to the 9th. 4 runs they give up in the 9th. It's very hard to get those outs in the postseason. Harder and harder and harder. That's just the way it is. All right, let me get to the see what's on your mind with the emails. I haven't looked at them yet. Jake, is it fair to call Saleh the worst coach in the NFL? Who cares about where he lands? What you can say is this. He's a bad coach. He's got a bad record. And right now, he continues to screw up a good team. Now, blame the general manager a little bit because he let some guys get away and he didn't get Reddick in here, which is a problem. Their bigger problem is against the run. They did a good job fortifying the offensive line, which right now is not run blocking worth a damn, and Hall isn't running worth a damn. They are pass blocking pretty well. Also, it helps that Rodgers gets rid of the ball as quickly as he does. A lot of it's quick pass stuff from Rodgers. But their lack of running game and right now their inability to stop the run. Think about it. With no Johnson, no Mosley, no Huff, losing guys like Franklin Myers, that, and then bringing Reddick in and then not having him. Now, Reddick's a pass rusher. He's not a great run stopper, but they need to get Mosley back. Hopefully they will. And they need another plugger or develop him. The one thing Sal is supposedly strong on is developing secondary defenders into role players that become positive. Do that then. As far as them running the whole team, you got no chance of him doing that. He's just clueless. And that's why the team looks so ill-prepared, and it's just a mess. Seth, what are your thoughts on the Knicks trade for Towns? I have very distinct thoughts on the trade. I have not said word one about the trade yet. Not one word anywhere. I will, when we get a slow day, I will do a podcast on the trade. I will tell you this. I don't love the trade. I understand it, and you know how I felt, how important it was to get Randall out of here. I thought that was the most important thing they had to do. I wanted no part of breaking up the Villanova 4. Nobody did. But I'm going to hold off till I go through the whole reasoning I have for the whole thing. But I can tell you this. I don't love it. Now, Mike asks, what is the point of playing 2 Monday night games essentially at the same time? They only do it early in the season. It is done for 2 reasons. One, to spread the wealth, and two, create inventory. Also, give teams a chance that don't get enough chance in prime time, and they complain about that. Sometimes you go 4 or 5 years with some of these bad teams and don't hit prime time. Okay, now they'll always now get a Thursday or Monday, but you want to be on Sunday night, first of all. Monday night, second, Thursdays, third, and you'll get one shot in a divisional game somewhere. But overall, there are a lot of teams that don't get a lot of exposure while other teams are maxed out all the time. You know who they are. It's only for a couple of weeks. They did it twice. Last year they only did it once. This year they did it twice. It's over with. Now, Dylan, reports say Sengai might be activated for the next round. Would you make that move? In a heartbeat. If he shows me he can pitch, you know what? I'm fine. If he shows me in a simulated game that he's got some velocity, some efficient movement on the ball, he looks like he has his stuff, hey, I am willing to utilize him. If I can get 5 innings, 6 innings out of him as a starter, sign me up right now. Hey, all hands on deck. If you can get a pitcher like that and add him to your roster, it's like making a deal in the postseason. Sign him up in a second. Kevin, I can't wrap my mind around Ohtani winning the MVP as a DH for the Dodgers. Yet this outcome seems a no-brainer. First of all, you are dealing with an award that has enormous marketing ties to it. There is no bigger star than Ohtani. Number two, the numbers he put up are staggering. He almost won a Triple Crown. He stole. Now, the steals to me are overrated because you can manage any number of steals. They never talk about how many you get, and his number percentages were very good. But you know what? You'd have to go back and give me the value of each steal before I'm going to recognize what the steals meant. The home runs are incredibly impressive. We know how big a star he is. I understand people want a shortstop who has a great year, and Lindor had an incredible season. He's going to have to settle for second place. That's all there is to it. A lot of people are against a DH beating out a center fielder, a shortstop, a catcher. In this case, considering who he is and how prolific his numbers are, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. He's going to win it. Judge and Ohtani are going to win the awards in overpowering fashion. Bill, it is evident the Jets need a new coach. Would they make a move in season? I do not think they will. It usually would only be for an in-house guy. It's not normally a very positive move. Okay, if you do it in a place like Jacksonville this year, where you had expectations, where you just gave a quarterback $275 million, where you brought in a guy who had once won a Super Bowl, you are doing it as a precursor to clean house. You're getting him out early so that you can get rid of anybody else, player, bad contract, coach, that you want to get rid of without any interference from him. So what it allows you to do is it allows you to keep cleaning house the rest of this season. So it allows you to go negotiate quietly behind the scenes with another guy because of the fact that you're not insulting anybody because he's not here. So that's the reason you get rid of a guy. If you're trying to win and you do it and say, hey, I have a playoff team, I'm doing it now. You're bringing a guy in who hasn't had a training camp, who hasn't put his stamp on his coaching staff. And a big part of coaching is your coordinators and the idea that you don't want to have to coach the coaches. If you bring a coach in who's got any gravitas, he has to teach a staff that he didn't put together. He has to teach them his way. He can't do that as the season progresses. There are too many things he doesn't have his hand on that he doesn't want to deal with that. He wants to do it and come in and have months before his first OTAs, months before the draft, months before training camp and everything else. So that's why it's not a normally productive move in the NFL to trade. I understand you see it, it happens once in a while. It usually is because of illness, and then the interim steps up and does well. That's the only time it ever works. Otherwise, it really doesn't have any impact. Don't expect that to happen. But understand this. This is it for Saleh. First of all, his record stinks. Secondly, he's dreadful. He hasn't shown you any redeeming qualities. He's even making Rodgers look bad. I mean, it has reached the point very quickly of no return. Now, maybe they can overcome it and get to the postseason, but I think they are a heavy weight to overcome, he and Hackett. A very heavy anchor on the Jets' rise. There's no question about it. We'll see you later.